Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the New Europe Studios on Avenue de Tervuren in Brussels. With us today is Dr. Axel Gietz, the Director of Group Corporate Affairs at Imperial Tobacco, and we'll be talking about the illicit trade of cigarettes within, the EU and the outer regions as well, or to put it more simply, the smuggling of tobacco. All right. Thank you for being with us today, Dr. Gietz.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. We're going to be talking about the smuggling of cigarettes, the effects of, smuggling operations on the European economy, etc. We'll talk a little bit about what couldn't be done against it, what's being done against it now. So my first question is that, according to media reports that I've read, is that the illegal trade of cigarettes impacts national economies on a grand scale. How big is this scale? How big should we be thinking?
Well, it's difficult to quantify the total impact on the economy as a whole.
Yeah.
What I can tell you is concrete figures when it comes to loss in revenue for governments.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously the criminals selling these illegal products don't collect taxes.
Yeah.
Worldwide, that number, the losses in revenue for governments, is quoted at $50 billion US.
Wow.
For the EU, the 28 member states, it is quoted at 10 billion euros. This is a serious loss for governments,
yeah.
And this is money that could be used for investing into schools and public facilities and infrastructure, but it's just not available.
Yeah. I mean, 50 billion euros worldwide, 10 billion euros within Europe itself. That's higher than the GDP of a lot of countries, actually, globally. And this money is not available for, it's tax money, so it can be invested in education, culture, anything, infrastructure.
Absolutely. Let me just to put in perspective.
Yeah.
The criminals running this business hold a market share of 10 to 11% worldwide.
Wow.
Which makes them the number 3 in the international tobacco industry, behind PMI
mm-hmm.
and BAT,
mm-hmm.
but ahead of JTI and my company, Imperial Tobacco.
That is
serious.
Yeah, that's a serious issue.
To give you another illustration of how serious it is, cigarettes
mm-hmm.
are in the top 5 product categories that the smugglers make the most money with worldwide. You have cigarettes, you have drugs, you have arms, you have diamonds, and you have energy products. This is a lucrative business. It's
a very lucrative business from what I'm hearing. Obviously, national governments itself are trying to fight this smuggling of cigarettes, trying to fight this illicit trade. Do you think that they're doing enough when it comes to fighting this smuggling operation?
Well, given the numbers we've just been talking about, my answer would be they're doing a lot, but they're clearly not doing enough. In fact, I would say that one of the 2 major roadblocks we face jointly in fighting this illegal activity is government complacency. The other one is consumer complicity. Maybe we can talk about that later. Government complacency, what do I mean by that? I mean that they are underestimating the scope of this illegal business and the people they're dealing with. This is
mm-hmm.
organized crime and terrorist groups. They are not recognizing the link between ill-thought-through excessive regulation and excessive taxation and the growth of this business.
Mm-hmm.
And they are importantly not investing into border police and customs forces sufficiently, and linked to that, the penalties, the penal consequences of being caught smuggling cigarettes are absolutely too lenient,
mm-hmm.
because you basically get away with a slap on the wrist. So this is a low risk and high profit business that these organized crime and terrorist organizations are running.
Which makes it so lucrative, because if you're caught smuggling cigarettes, I imagine, if it's being smuggled in a truck across the border, and for example, I don't know, the driver doesn't even know about it, he'll get away with, at most, a small fine, I'm guessing.
A slap on the wrist.
Yeah, a slap on the wrist.
To stick with that example, I live in the UK, where our company is headquartered in Bristol. If you manage to smuggle a truck load full of illegal cigarettes into the UK, your profit is about 1 million euros.
Per truck. Yeah, okay, that kind of caught me off guard there. So this smuggling is a very, very lucrative business, And obviously, Europe would need a joint effort. You know, it can't just be national level regulation. Obviously, that is the basis, that is the start. But what could, for example, the European institutions or Europe as a whole, the EU, do against this operation?
It's a difficult situation because, as you say, by definition, smuggling is a cross-border international activity.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you have the 28 member states, you have the Schengen area, but you have huge disparities in excise rates from country to country. So that the incentive remains to smuggle from low-priced countries, or outside the EU for that matter, into high-priced, high-tax countries in the EU. And it is very difficult as long as these tax rates are not harmonized, and as long as the member states do not collaborate more actively or proactively, I should say, in combating these criminals, it's very difficult to actually have any impact.
Okay, yeah, to go on a sidetrack here, you previously mentioned consumer complacency. And obviously when a pack of cigarettes in the UK costs up to 10 or 11 pounds, and in Spain it's €3, or in Greece it's €2.50, just talking out of the top of my head here. You know, it's obviously lucrative for customers as well to buy illegal cigarettes. How are governments, how are organizations fighting this consumer complacency at the root?
It's the consumer complicity.
Complicity,
it's
yeah.
the fact that the consumer, understandably, in times of macroeconomic crisis and due to excessive taxation, finds legal products less and less affordable. That's what it's about, affordability.
Okay.
And this is driven, as I say, by macroeconomic developments that we have no influence over.
Yeah.
Governments should, but they don't get it right every time either. But certainly also by excessive taxation, which drives up prices. So at a certain point, the consumer, in his career of down trading towards ever cheaper products, will cross the red line and buy straight from the criminals. Let's not forget, in the European Union, on average, 83% of the price of a packet of cigarettes across the 28 member states, 83% is taxes. We do not sell tobacco, we sell taxes.
Yeah.
The governments, and we are partners in this business, the governments are the senior partner. So, as I say, as affordability becomes more and more difficult, at one point the consumer would say, you know what, I'm going to go straight to the criminals. They will always have the cheapest product because they do not collect taxes. At the same time, however, and this is a real issue, they don't mind selling to children either.
Yeah. Yeah, this is another big problem of, you know, selling to minor age kids. You know, minors themselves buy cigarettes as well. They get away with it. Even there's an age limit. You know, it's 16, 18 across Europe. The countries go as high as 21. But then it comes down to the individual shopkeeper of enforcing that regulation.
It's an individual shopkeeper, but to be fair, I think the individual shopkeeper, the retailers, who are our ultimate customers, a few points down the supply chain line, I don't think they are the major culprits here. I really think that it's the criminals who sell on the street corner to kids who exploit the fact that children, teenagers, for certain reasons get interested in smoking. The reasons are well documented. It's peer pressure. It's exampled by parents and older siblings, general issues of adolescence problems that lead them to wanting to try this. Yeah. And it's interesting to see that I've spoken of excessive regulation. A country like Ireland, which has the highest excise rates, the highest prices therefore, the highest share of market of the criminals, also has a way above average underage consumption rate vis-à-vis the other 27 member states. Yeah. Nothing that they've tried has worked. You take Germany, for example, by contrast, who have developed very intelligent education programs. By intelligent, I mean addressing those factors that I've named that trigger this desire to try the first cigarette. Yeah. And underage smoking consumption has gone way down in Germany, even in an environment that, compared to Ireland, is still very liberal when it comes to advertising laws, etc.
So what you're saying is Germany could, when it comes down to it, be a pilot nation for you know, ways to fight this illegal trade of cigarettes.
Absolutely, it's a combination of factors. It's, as I said, intelligent education program. It is counterproductive to knock a teenager over the head and tell them it's bad for you. Yeah. For 50 years, people have known smoking is bad for them. Yeah? We print health warnings on every packet that we make, market, and sell.
Yeah.
What else is new?
Yeah.
But teenagers, at a certain point, may develop this interest. You've got to address the factors that trigger this interest, number one. Number two, Germany also has a reasonable excise policy, a predictable increase following the inflation rate, which again means affordability becomes not such a big issue.
Yeah.
So in a number of aspects, Germany indeed is a good example, while still maintaining relatively liberal laws when it comes to advertising, when it comes to display at the point of sales, etc.
Yeah. So there's, you know, from the side of the government, the tobacco industry actually, there's a framework convention on tobacco control. How does this FCTC function? How does it work?
The framework convention on tobacco control is not the tobacco industries. It is put in place by the World Health Organization,
okay,
who kicked this off in October 2000. Part of it is indeed what you've mentioned, the so-called anti-illicit trade protocol. It's a very complex process to which countries have to sign up. I'm not going to go into detail.
Thank you.
The fact is, in this one aspect of fighting illicit trade, governments, the WHO, and the tobacco industry are totally aligned. It is in nobody's interest, only the criminals benefit.
Yeah.
If the AIT protocol were to be implemented, for example, countries would need to shut down the so-called free trade zones, like Jebel Ali in Dubai, for example, where there are factories manufacturing on a large scale illegal products that are called illicit whites, which is the most successful product category in the illicit trade. These are fantasy brands produced locally and then immediately sold to smugglers who then try to get them into high excise, high cost countries and sell them illegally. So we are supportive of the AIT protocol. There are other things in the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control which to our minds make no sense and are counterproductive. But in this one aspect, let me repeat it, the WHO, governments and the industry should be aligned.
So it's not only, you know, the smuggling of high brand goods such as you know, branded cigarettes, but what you're saying here is that there's a whole counterfeit industry of counterfeit cigarettes, counterfeit manufacturing actually that comes into Europe. How would this have effect on, you know, health-wise? Because cigarettes are regulated. You know, there's an amount of nicotine that can be in a cigarette. There's an amount of tar that can be in a cigarette. What do counterfeit cigarettes do?
Well, counterfeit cigarettes are the second category next to the illicit whites that I've mentioned. Counterfeit cigarettes are produced, let's say, in China, mimicking a genuine branded product, but they are not. Smoking is never good for you. That's clear. Yeah. That said, these products are totally unregulated. Nobody knows what goes into them. Therefore, no smoker, when buying and consuming them, knows what he's ingesting into his body. And they carry no health warnings. Yeah. We, by contrast, are one of the most highly regulated industries of all, and conduct our business in the knowledge that our product is controversial, bad for your health. 25% of adults consume it, 27% don't and may not like it. Yeah. We are very responsible in the way we conduct our business, and this includes policies and processes and protocols that we've put in place to control our own supply chain, to make sure that our legitimate product does not get diverted into illegal channels somewhere down the supply chain. Yeah. This is not easy, but we are determined and we are absolutely committed to making our contribution to make sure that our genuine product does not end up in the illicit market. Yeah.
So it's you know, you're the most heavily regulated industry there is. Like you said, you know, arms trading is lower on the scale than cigarettes, to put that in perspective. And there's, from what I'm sensing, a culture change must come along, a societal change must come along. But how could nations be tougher on smugglers to combat cigarette trade? Obviously by instilling higher penalties, but is there anything that can be done more? I imagine closed borders aren't the issue if we're talking about free trade and we're talking about the EU member states.
I mean, one of the founding pillars of the EU is the harmonization of markets to allow free flow of trade and of products. It is not easy, but as I say, harmonization of excise rates, which is very difficult because that is the last bastion of national sovereignty. Yeah, I'm totally aware of that. Closer collaboration when it comes to policing and controlling borders, and supporting each other in the investigative work that goes into busting these organized crime rings, where we also play a part. I mentioned our compliance protocols. We also have what we call anti-illicit trade operations, who are specialized in gathering information and making it available to police authorities in various countries, thereby supporting them in their fight against the criminals. We don't do this ourselves, but we have intelligence that we make available. And it shows that the closer the industry and these public police and border control authorities work together, and the closer these authorities and agencies between countries work together, the more successful you are in busting these rings. Is it ever going to be 100% successful? Maybe not, because it's very much a demand-driven market, and that brings you back to consumer complicity. If we cannot somehow close down the demand side by educating smokers who, as I said before, because of affordability, are tempted to buy from the criminals, educating them so they know what kind of people they are sponsoring here, organized crime, terrorist organizations, and understanding what it is that they're buying, then we may have a chance of fighting it both at the supply and the demand end. But obviously that's a very complicated and complex process.
Yeah, so this trade, if we're to call it a trade, is a gigantic criminal activity. Are different criminal activities interconnected with this smuggling of cigarettes? Like, does it fund things like human trafficking? Any bigger criminal activity, really?
Absolutely. We mentioned before that the penalties are really pitiful compared to the penalties when you get caught smuggling drugs, for example. It is well documented that the smuggling of cigarettes helps finance other activities of organized crime. It is also well documented that it helps finance the activities of terrorist groups, be it ISIS in the Middle East, be it the IRA in Ireland. To give you one example, there is a jihadist terrorist leader who operates out of the Sahara region, who goes by the nickname of Mr. Marlboro. Oh, because everybody knows that's how he finances his operations. It's not because he smokes that.
I mean, 10 billion euros within Europe, as you said before, and $50 million worldwide is.
It takes you a long way.
It takes you a very long way. So, what would your proposals be concerning the sensibilization of the public, the education of the public?
Well, as I mentioned, it's a very complex situation. You have to develop, or you have to identify the media, the channels through which you can get through to consumers, which in our contemporary world is not so easy because there's lots of white noise out there, and it's all very fragmented, and obviously social media play a huge role. Secondly, you have to be able to draft the right messaging to make people realize that they are not just hurting themselves, but harming society at large, and sponsoring people who will, use this money to do other bad things, and who also have no qualms about selling to children, which is the key aspect here. And so it's a complex challenge, but if we manage to somehow educate the consumers, including the teenagers, to make them realize, it's not a good idea to start smoking, then I think we've come a long way. But at the same time, we also have to fight the supply side, obviously. And we cannot do this. This is something, we don't police borders. We don't define excise regimes, and we don't arrest people. We will support, we will give our intelligence. Nobody will ever know more about our business than we do. And we are more than happy to contribute with this information and know-how that we have. But at the end of the day, it's governments, who need to see the light, as it were, and get serious about fighting this jointly with us.
Yeah. I think that was a perfect conclusion to what we've been talking about as a whole. It really rounded it up, you know, the government side, the education side, the tobacco industry side. And what we've seen here is that governments really need to work together more as well with the tobacco industry. And, you know, even schools and educational policy needs to change within Europe, needs to change globally in order to fight this, this smuggling of cigarettes, this illicit $50 billion trade worldwide. I would like to thank you very much for being a guest today. With us was Dr. Axel Gietz of Imperial Tobacco, and we've been talking about the illegal smuggling of cigarettes. Thank you very much.